Good afternoon and welcome to the ForeFlight Basics of Flight Plan Filing. My name is Rob MacLeod. I'm an FAA aircraft dispatcher, commercial pilot, AGI, and I have the pleasure and privilege of flying the Phenom 300 and Citation 560 aircraft, and I am the customer success manager here at ForeFlight. I am joined by my good friend and colleague, Tim Stahl, and I will let Tim introduce himself.
Howdy, I'm Tim Stahl, FAA aircraft dispatcher, commercial pilot, and flight operations team leader.
So what are we going to go over today? Well, we're going to talk about helpful tricks to make ForeFlight easier to use. We want this to seem like just a casual conversation among friends, like you bought Tim his bottomless cup of coffee. And, you were telling us that you just signed up for ForeFlight, and we're like, great, let us show you the best way to use this product, because we know you're not necessarily a new pilot, but you might be new to this application. And ForeFlight's a tool. ForeFlight's a very powerful tool that you can use to make your flying easier, more efficient, and ultimately safer. So really, we're going to talk about things we wish every user knew before filing or trying to fly with ForeFlight. So we're going to go over things like aircraft setup, we're going to do some flight planning, and we're going to talk about filing. Things that we're not going to cover, the dispatch product. That's a whole another webinar in itself. We're not going to talk about the logbook feature. We're not going to talk about weight and balance, and please don't ask us questions about your subscriptions. That goes to a completely different team. We're going to focus on things that we know and understand really well. And hopefully, we're going to get to all your questions. But speaking of questions, you can ask questions via the GoWebinar message panel, and we'll respond to some during the presentation and many others during the Q&A at the end. So if we don't crack too many dumb jokes, we can probably get to a lot of the questions at the end. So we've got a team of guys in the background who are going to be answering your questions as we go along. But if I think I see a question come across that we can cover while Tim or myself is talking, we'll just try to do it live. So please keep the questions coming. What's up, Tim?
Yeah, and if it's a more in-depth question that we can't answer here, we'll grab your email address and reach out to you through email after the webinar.
Yeah, we'll do that. We don't want to leave any of you, out there hanging with a question that, but if it just takes too much time, we won't get to it here. If you haven't been there, we encourage you to go to the ForeFlight support page. You can copy the link on the page, foreflight.com/support. There's a myriad of different web pages. You like that word, didn't you? Myriad, yeah. There are a lot of different articles, videos, webinars, tons of information on the ForeFlight.com support page. But we created a little page within the support page. And if you do a keyword search in the ForeFlight support page for new user webinar, you will see the links to a lot of the webinars and a lot of the pages that we're going to refer to. And it's going to look a little bit like that. So anything in blue you can click on. So we're going to refer to that, do shameless plugs for some of the webinars that we've created in the recent future. So in the recent
future,
sorry about that.
What tense are you working in?
Sorry about that. In the recent past. So please don't be afraid to ask questions. We're here to help, and we want everybody to walk away to come away from this webinar with a better understanding and a higher comfort level of ForeFlight. So I guess without any further ado, we're going to move on to what I think you should do. What did I think you should do before you take your first flight with ForeFlight? Well,
get a pot of coffee.
Yeah, get a pot of coffee and sit down and read the pilot's guide. The pilot's guide is a very helpful tool for you. It's a big document, I understand that, but it's written by pilots, for pilots, and it's going to cover a lot of the basic stuff that you need to know to use the ForeFlight application. It covers both some of the mostly the mobile platform, but it will talk a little bit about the web platform as well. Really take some time to sit down, go through it. Not every part of the pilot's guide is going to be applicable to your flying or your subscription level, but I think it would be worth your while to sit down and spend some time in the pilot's guide. Again, speaking of subscription levels, everything you're going to see as far as an iPad, we're using Tim's iPad today. We have it set up for a basic subscription. That way,
my iPad is basic.
We set up it for the basic subscription so that these features will be available to everybody who's viewing this webinar. So we're not going to get real deep into like performance stuff. We're going to keep it as a new user tool here. So just keep that in mind. One other thing I would suggest is get all the information you can about the aircraft that you're going to be flying. So if you own the airplane, you obviously have the pilot's operating handbook, the weight and balance data. You hopefully have all the documentation for your avionics. Gather all that together and use that to set up the aircraft, which Tim is going to go into great detail in a few minutes. Also, if you're a renter, I have found that a lot of flight schools and a lot of places that rent airplanes, they will put a lot of the information about the airplane as far as the avionics, even the weight and balance in some cases, on their website. They use it as a marketing tool. So gather as much as you can so that you're not just picking and choosing, hoping you got things right when you're setting up the airplane, because it's really important as a foundation for your successful use of the ForeFlight application to have the airplane set up correctly. And then finally, I would just say, practice using the app. Be an armchair pilot for an evening. Plan out a couple of flights. Don't file them, please. But get in there and just get used to how the buttons work and how they're going to how things interact with each other, and just have some fun with the application. So certainly try to do that before you do your first flight. And ForeFlight is such a well-designed tool with a lot of human factors thought about it, that by the end of the week, you'll probably be just like Tim, who can order catering while shooting an ILS.
And making a pot of coffee.
And he makes a pot of coffee too. So
on the approach.
So that's my recommendation. So I think I'm going to end up turning this over now to Tim, and he's going to talk about aircraft setup. So Tim.
Yeah, and just one more thing to add about the support. If you do run into some problems, we have a fantastically fanatical support staff.
Works for me.
And you can reach them at team@foreflight.com. So that's team@foreflight.com. All right, we're going to move through this quickly and hit the items that are sticky spots for new users. We could do a deep dive on this. In fact, we have. If you need more information, please take a look at the shameless plug ICAO Filing Made Easy webinar. All right, let's set up an aircraft. We will come over to More, Aircraft. We will tap the little plus button to add one. The tail number. So in the United States, we need to have the in the registry. So November 1, 2, 3, 4, as opposed to just 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you happen to own November 1, 2, 3, 4, we really appreciate you letting us use it here. Aircraft type. In the search box, we'll type in the manufacturer. So how about we fly a little Cessna? Type in Cessna, and then we roll through the different types of Cessna aircraft, and it's any manufacturer. You put in the information, and we'll have the aircraft here. If we don't, give us a call, or, well, give us an email.
Yeah, send us an email.
ForeFlight.com.
Hey, Tim, let me ask you a question. I'm a
Yes,
pretty
sir.
smart guy. I know the ICAO code for a Cessna 172. Why can't I just type that in?
Well, because there are some 172s that use different ICAO codes, and it will file with a different type code. You'll see the type codes over here.
Mm-hmm.
How about today we just use this 172F? So we'll select it, and we'll pull the information in. We can put the home airport in here, and the speed is going to be knots. Performance profiles. You're going to need at least a basic performance profile. So we're going to add that. Give it a name. How about basic? And we will come down here. The only ones we really need are the ones that say required. So cruise, oops, let's call it 100 knots. I know that's a little slow. He's got a climb prop on it. Fuel, 9 gallons an hour. Done. And we're going to make that default.
And by setting that as default, that's what's going to load when you load this airplane in there, unless you tell it something else.
That is correct. And if you happen to want to switch to a cruise prop from a climb prop, you can create additional performance profiles here. You'll see that it is auto-populated some information. One of the things is this default cruise altitude. And that default cruise altitude is important because when you start to create the flight on the maps page, it will start with this default cruise altitude. You can change it later, but that's where this comes from. Some people ask about that. Coming on down.
Right. So if every time you start a flight plan in your Cessna 172 and the altitude starts at 12.5, it's probably because your default is set to that.
That's correct. Your default is a little bit high. Okay, FAA equipment. We are not going to file FAA flight plans. We're going to file ICAO flight plans. So we'll come down to the ICAO equipment. And in here, as we go through, you can see a lot of different equipment type. If you happen to have VOR, a VHF, and the ILS under L, what you'd actually put in is S for standard equipment. We'll do that here.
Right. That's if you have those capabilities.
Those capabilities on the aircraft. If you don't indicate them. Indicate what you have.
Mm-hmm.
And this aircraft, we'll say we have a GPS as well. So the GPS is not your iPad slave to a Stratus. Your GPS is a certified GPS mounted in the aircraft. So if you're just working off your iPad, you do not have GPS equipment for the ACAO codes. Coming down, we'll tap on surveillance. And this is both your ADS-B codes and your transponder codes. And for the ADS-B codes, you can have B1, B2 for 1090 out, 1090 in out. And then if you happen to be flying with UAT, you could use U1 or U2 for UAT out, UAT in out. However, you cannot use both. It's one or the other. So we'll select B2, and it says it auto selects the transponder as mode C. If you happen to be a different transponder type, for example, mode S, you'd indicate that here. Next up is the PBN equipment codes. So this is performance-based navigation. And if you're not going to be shooting RNAV approaches, RNAV SID stars, you really don't need to touch this. If you are, then you'll go in here and you will select the required equipment or what you're indicating the aircraft is capable of. And so if we're shooting RNAV approach departure, we'd indicate D2, and you will notice under the equipment codes, an R is automatically added.
It's like magic.
It is. The engineers here are great because they just make stuff happen for you. And you'll see R is PBN approved.
And so what Tim just went through, if you're not familiar with ICAO and ICAO codes or PBN and that type of deal, once again, shameless plug for the ICAO filing made easy. It's a webinar this other goofball that we know did. It's incredibly boring, but it goes through this entire thing and it breaks down everything in the ICAO. What are you smiling about?
Well, you definitely need a pot of coffee to get through that.
Yeah, you need a pot of coffee to get through that.
Absolutely.
But it does explain all this in a lot of detail. And also the IFR filing made easy. Is that what it's called? IFR filing? It's the IFR filing webinar. That's the one you and I did about a year ago.
A couple other knuckleheads made that. Yeah.
And we go through this in some more detail. So there's a lot of information that we have out there on how to get these aircraft set up. If you do some searches in the support center, we actually have documents that'll say if you have this type of GPS unit or this type of transponder in ADS-B, here are the exact codes you should be putting in. If you're at a complete loss, reach out to team@ForeFlight.com and we'll be more than happy to send you an email saying, here's our recommendations. And if you're really stuck, heck, we'll make a phone call and we'll talk to you and we'll talk airplane all day.
We will. We like talking about airplanes.
We'll talk airplane all day.
I'm just wondering how many times we're going to shamelessly plug the team at ForeFlight.com.
A couple more times.
A couple more times?
Yeah, I'd say.
Okay.
All right.
So as we continue to go through here, we see the dinghies. If you happen to have a dinghy on board, you throw that information in here. Under emergency equipment, if you have life jackets, you put it here. Radios. Everyone flying in the United States should have an ELT on board the aircraft. So ELT. Survival equipment is, desert, jungle, maritime. It's additional equipment that you might have. Survival remarks if you want to let them know that you have other stuff on the aircraft. So that's it. We now have an airplane.
All right, what are we going to do with the airplane now?
Let's go for flight, man.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we'll tap on maps, and on maps on the left-hand side, the top of the left, you'll see that there's a drop-down menu. On the left, you'll have different types of charting. On the right, you'll have different types of overlays. So for example, if you wanted to see the traffic in the area, you could select on that. It shows it to you on the ground, which is pretty neat. Next one over is the FPL button. That's the flight plan editor. And you can select that button and deselect it, and it comes and goes. No big deal. Next one over is the settings. And on the settings, you can go through and you can select how you want the view to appear on this map page. And there's a lot of different things here.
Yeah, one thing on that, especially if you're flying like a low wing airplane where you have that glass, that plexiglass canopy over and it gets really bright in there, this screen brightness or the map theme, changing that can just alter the experience of using ForeFlight in the airplane incredibly. So if you're having a hard time seeing it, mess around in the settings.
Or you could just fly a high wing Cessna and be happy.
Well, or you could do that, but
yeah,
not everybody wants to fly a high wing Cessna.
That's true. So I know. They haven't had a good experience in Cessna.
Well, we don't want to be biased, do we?
Okay. So we're all done with settings. Next over, we have synthetic vision, well, HSI. You can get this as an add-on. It's not included in the basic subscription. Close that. One more over, you will notice on the bottom, the instruments pop up. And these are great for having in flight. And if you want to change one of these, for example, you just tap on it and you get a list of different instruments that are available to you. If we're flying and you're in the cockpit, we're going to need the G meter.
Yeah, that G meter, that's not actually available, I think, out there.
It's not available.
I knew you were going to make that joke.
Of course I was.
All right.
Have you ever landed with you?
Tim didn't believe me that I could bounce at 20 feet in the air.
Yeah,
I told him I could.
I know now.
Yeah.
That's why we have the G meter there. It's all because of Rob. Okay, so we're going to work on a map, flight plan here. We're not going to go fly yet, so we're going to put the instruments away. Next one over, this is favorites. And when you create a route, let's say that you're flying from Houston to Austin all the time, you could add a route into here, and you can come back to it, select it, and it'll auto-populate into the flight plan editor. So let's come back over, flight plan editor. You'll notice aircraft. We will select the aircraft that we built. You'll notice that the profile changed over to basic and the altitude is at 6,000 feet. Now, where are we going to go? We're leaving Sugar Land. And we are going to, hey, Austin. You'll notice the plot or the track line appears there. And we get some distance and time and route information, a little bit of fuel burn. We have the route advisor over here off on the right. We tap on the route advisor and it gives us ATC cleared routes. We can go through and look at these and select the one that we want. As we're going through these, we need to keep in mind the type aircraft that we're flying. For example, we are in a Cessna, which is a little piston aircraft. And this particular cleared route has turboprop and jet, but it doesn't show piston. And the reason for that is the SID or the STAR has a restriction on it for jet or turboprop aircraft and will not let you do piston on it. You'll end up getting a rejection. So we'll come down to this one. It has piston. It's cleared over a week ago and 236 times total in the last 3 weeks. We can select it and then select the route. And you'll see it fills in here. All right. We can also tap on the procedures. And if we wanted to select a different procedure, for example, into Austin, different arrival, and we'd have the different ones here that we could go through. I'll close that.
And we go through that procedure and route advisor in pretty good detail on that IFR filing webinar too. So if you're scratching your head on that, you can watch that. We also have some other articles in the ForeFlight support page that you can refer to if you.
Yeah, there's other supporting documentation. And if you still run into trouble, there is the team at ForeFlight.com.
Team at ForeFlight.com. Reach out to us. We'll help you. And yep, you must be doing a great job, Tim, because I don't see a single question here. So you're being eloquent and
Have
clear.
I put everybody to sleep? Did they start drinking coffee before, or I don't know. Okay. So we have estimated time of departure, and we will say today at let's say 22:30 Z. And I work in Zulu. That's just how I work. If you want to work in local, there's a way to change the time by going down to more settings and then units, and you'll be able to change the time to either Zulu if you're in local or to local if you're in Zulu. All right. Anyway. Okay. So, you know what? Today's a nice day, Rob.
No, it's not. It's actually about the rain, Tim.
You're killing me. You know that?
Okay, let's just pretend it's a nice day.
Okay, fine. We're going to pretend it's a nice day. Okay, so we're pretending it's a nice day outside. And in order to fly VFR, let's select the altitude button. You'll notice there's VFR, IFR, and westerly, easterly in order to help you with the hemispheric rule. VFR, and you'll notice that we get the 1,000 foot plus the 500 for VFR traffic, and we're going to select 6,500 feet. I selected VFR, right?
You did.
Oh, I did, but it went back. And 6,500. Okay.
There you go.
Close. Now, for flying VFR, we're not going to be using an instrument procedure, so we can tap on that, and boom, ha! The poof came back.
Yeah, it didn't happen last time.
Yeah,
but yeah, you can just grab on whatever. If your route is longer, you can just grab onto any portion of your route and move it around. Tim, see if you can move CWK on the other side of Austin, just so people can see. This is an easy way to kind of move things around here. You can just kind of slide it, drop it in.
Of course, that really.
Yeah, now ForeFlight's going, well, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So, but that's an easy way to move things around if you're typing stuff. So.
Okay, so I'm going to put CWK back.
Yeah, put it back.
There we go. And then there's some jump areas out here, and I want to avoid them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the route line there. I'm going to pull that guy down, just like that. And when I do that, it gives me a number of different waypoints, airports, VORs, if there are any. There we go, one down there at the bottom. It also gives the lat long right here at the top, and that's what we're going to select, the lat long. So we have that. And that looks okay for a VFR flight. We are going to go to the pack button. And
can I bring up one thing while you're talking about that? So I know we see tickets every once in a while. We see tickets from users asking questions. Well, how do I, if I want to file something for pattern work, what do I do? Well, I think what you just showed is the easiest way to do it. So you select Sugar Land. You're going to do pattern work at Sugar Land. Okay. You select Sugar Land as the airport, and then Sugar Land is your destination, right? And then you just zoom in and you pick a spot on your downwind and just do the
and then just select right here.
Yeah, you can just drag it over or do the tap screen, a mile or so off to off to the east. Yep. And that's how you can do it. Otherwise, if you just try to do pattern work, Sugar Land to Sugar Land, you get a 0 error for distance, and ForeFlight won't be able to calculate. But I just thought about that if you're going to be doing pattern work.
Yeah, that's a good call. Okay, I'm going back to pack.
Yeah, go back.
Okay, so here we go. I tap pack. I'm not actually going to pack this right now because it might crush the internet as it's sucking down data from our servers. And I would suggest that what you do is the night before, when you plan your flight, you go ahead and you pack and you download all the data the night before. That way, when you get to the FBO that has slower internet, presumably, you're not delayed getting the latest information. And what this is going to do is it's going to pull down all the weather and the SIGMETs and the TFRs. The TFRs are important. Fuel prices, NOTAMs. It'll also, I've recently done all the charts, but it will download the latest information. And that way, when you are flying anywhere inside of this little circle zone, you will have access to the charts, the weather data, all the information for this flight without needing to be connected to the internet, because it's tough to be connected to the internet when you're flying at 6,500 feet over middle of nowhere, Texas.
Yeah, true.
Yep. So pack this guy on the way out to the airplane. And you just tap pack. Okay, next up. Right here, this is the favorite that I discussed earlier. You'll tap the star, type in your favorite, Austin. You'd save it, and then it would end up right here. We're going to skip the send to button. We'll come back to that in just a minute. We're currently in the editor. Navlog shows all of the different waypoints, all two here, with fuel burns, times, and information. If you're on a longer flight, this could be really important. And I'm going to tap on profile. Go ahead.
Can I just show a neat trick?
Yeah.
So this is, I think, mostly for IFR. Let's just say you took off out of Sugar Land, you're going to Austin, and you're maybe, 2 minutes into the flight. ATC calls up and says, proceed direct to CWK. Well, in your flight plan, you're going first to that lat long. But if you open up the nav log like Tim has, and you click that little arrow, yep, go ahead and hit it. You're going to get a pop-up, and it's going to say change plan, and you would hit direct CWK.
Bam!
And it's like magic.
That is magic.
Yeah, the problem is that little our little blue dot, that's where we're sitting in the middle of Houston as opposed to Sugar Land.
Right, yeah.
It's still picking up a GPS
here.
signal. But
it is.
So if you ever need to go direct, that's a really great way to just instantly update it. It's like hitting the direct to button on the FMS. It takes you right to it. So fun little.
That is a fun little fact.
It is. I like it.
I like that. Mm-hmm. Okay, next over, I'm going to click on profile. Profile is not available in the basic subscription, but it is interesting information if you end up using that, particularly in mountainous areas.
Yeah, it gives you the side view.
It does. Hey, look what it did here.
Yeah, because the office building we're sitting in anymore. We're not in an airport anymore.
Yeah, okay, such is life. Okay, so the send to button.
Yeah, can you put us back onto Sugar Land before you hit on the send to? That way the flight plan on my side looks right.
That's a good idea. Okay, so I'll tap on here, and I will replace with Sugarland. Replace.
I saw what you were going to do. You're trying to tap that on your laptop.
I was totally going to tap it into the laptop, and then thought about it.
All right, great.
I need to be on the iPad. I have too many different moving parts in front of me.
All right, hit the send to button. We're going to take this over to the flights page.
Okay, so when you're all done with this and you're ready to send it over to the flights page, you will tap the send to button and then flights, and it magically sends it over here.
Automatically.
That's
good. All right, so now that we're in the flights page, so this is of course, the page that you're going to come to that you're going to prep the flight plan for filing. Obviously, we've got our departure time, we've got our departure airport, we've got our destination airport. If you have a need for an alternate, let's just say we are going to go IFR today, and we needed to find an alternate. There's a couple of different things you can do. You can let ForeFlight make some recommendations for you, which is what the little spinning wheel is doing. So it's recommending San Antonio, Austin Executive, College Station. Or let's just say, for example, if we can't get into Austin, there's no point in even going. And we wanted to just pick someplace else, like we want to go back to Sugar Land. You could just type it right in there. If you don't like the suggestions that ForeFlight is giving you, you could just type in Sugar Land. You'll notice it pops up down there. And so you have that freedom there on that field. Now,
so here's the reason that you didn't want to fly VFR today.
Yeah,
right here.
Yeah.
And it's nice that it shows in the alternate what the weather's doing at the alternate airports that you're looking at.
Right. So it kind of gives you a little bit of heads up. Right now, I think Sugar Land is still VFR because we've got a green dot.
We do.
But it's going to show you a bunch of information about the airport, plus how much fuel it's going to cost and your time getting back to it. So,
and the longest runway.
And the longest runway, 8,000 feet.
That's good.
Right. Runway. Well, let's just be realistic here. Let's go down. Let's use EDC, Austin Executive. We'll click that just to get that in there. It'll give us probably a more realistic calculation. So we've got our alternate in there. We've got the aircraft. We got our performance profile. Flight rules. If we're going VFR, we want to make sure, double check that. We see this happen every once in a while where the IFR where the VFR will switch back over to IFR. So just make sure you've got the right filing rule there. Scroll down, here's your map, and yeah, we're getting the radar.
Here's the weather.
Oh my goodness, look at that stuff.
We're gonna fly right through that.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. It's got your route. You also have the chance, if you don't like that route after looking at this, you can pick the route advisor again, and it may suggest something that'll get you around the storms a little better. So you do have that freedom on this page, but we'll just leave it as such. We'll pretend that those storms aren't there. Cruise altitude, we've got 6,500 feet. Again, you can change that here. Maybe we'll get a better,
Let's take a look at the winds.
Yeah, we'll get a better push on the winds. If we go up,
yeah, 8,500, you
get 1 knot. I don't know if that's worth the fuel burn to climb 2,000 feet. Destination services, this is where you can put in the FBO. That way you can get the air-to-ground frequency for the FBO you're going to, the phone number if you need to call them. You can pick whatever one you want here.
Whoever has the cheapest fuel.
Yeah, pick the cheapest fuel.
This guy right here.
So if you select that, thank you. It will put all that in there. The little phone icon, you could make a call if you were doing this on your cell phone. You could call them right from that button. It will give you the directions. You can send email and then more information. You can also send off a fuel order. It'll fill it out and you can send it right to the FBO right from this page, and that's kind of handy. So the next thing is fuel at shutdown. This is kind of neat. It doesn't work real well in a Cessna 172 because you don't really have digital gauges. You just got these little things that kind of tell you how much fuel you have on board.
Well, it depends on which 172. I mean, the brand new ones.
Well, not the ones I fly to.
Yeah, I know. They're not the one that we're working with here at the F model.
But if you have something where you have digital fuel, you can put in your starting fuel and then put in your fuel at shutdown. It'll do the math for you. Same thing with the times. You put in your starting hobs, your ending hobs, and it'll do the calculations for you. I love this because I'm terrible at math, which is why I went into aviation. So once again,
that's why we promoted you.
I thought it was to get me out of the way so
that's
I wouldn't cause more damage.
What it was for.
Thanks a lot for your confidence. You also have the ability to pack one last time. Like Tim said, what I always do is I plan out my flight the night before. That way, if I have to download a lot of charts, I can get that all done from the Wi-Fi at the house, which is going to be better than the one at the FBO. And then right before I start heading out to the airplane, I hit pack one more time just to get the absolute latest weather, NOTAMs, all that stuff loaded into my ForeFlight before I actually fire up the engine. So with that being said, so let's go on to proceed to file. All right, so I would say everybody filing in ForeFlight, unless you have a very, very specific reason, you should be filing in the ICAO form. Really, ForeFlight, if you have your airplane set up correctly, ForeFlight does all the work for the ICAO. It's not difficult. Shameless plug once again for the ICAO filing. ICAO
filing made easy webinar.
I can't even say it. That's how easy it is.
Wouldn't that be difficult?
Yeah.
How difficult it is? Okay.
But if you watch that, we talk a lot about what all the different things that go into an ICAO, and I actually break down an ICAO flight plan in line by line and in section by section, but use the ICAO. It is your friend. It will give you a lot more capability and a lot more flexibility than the old NAS. And actually the NAS, it's supposed to be gone, right? They mandated it to be gone back in August of 2019, but some people are still hanging on to that. So let it go and file ICAO.
Yeah, and the reason we haven't taken it out is there is actually one specific use case for it, but we're not going to get into that here.
Right. So make sure it says ICAO. If it doesn't, if you see FAA domestic, just change it to ICAO. All right. We've got the flight type. We're a GA airplane. We're VFR. We've got our aircraft in there. If we're flying under a call sign, this is where you can put it in. Please make sure it's a real call sign, not something you've just made up. So if you want to be known as Lightsaber 3, you better have that call sign registered with the FAA.
And if not, they're going to want to have a chat with you when you get on the ground.
They might.
Please call the tower.
Then we got our true airspeed. The rest of the stuff, I don't need to explain it to all of you there. Let's go down to the remarks section. Thanks, Tim. So if you needed to put in a remark, like like you wanted to do a practice approach on this flight, you could put in there practice approach, ILS runway, I don't know, 35 right, something like that. That's where you put the remarks for the flight plan. If you're doing a DVFR flight plan, you're coming into the US, or you're doing an IFR flight plan into the US, this is where you'd put ADCUS. This is where you put your remarks in there. Important thing to know about the remarks field. Do not use anything except alphanumeric characters. If you put a slash in there, you're going to bomb out your flight plan, because anytime a slash is included,
it thinks it goes to the next field.
It goes to the next field. That's how
smiley faces are not acceptable.
Yeah,
as well.
so it's all alphanumeric, just letters and numbers. So you can put your stuff in there. Let's scroll down to the pilot information real quick. So down here, and this is something that is really important, but a lot of people just kind of skip over it. Make sure you have good information in here. So there's Tim's alter ego, Hank Cowdog.
Hank the Cowdog.
So this is the information that, at least here at ForeFlight, we're going to see this information. We're going to see your name, we're going to see your email address, and most importantly, we're also going to see your phone number. And you say, well, why? Well, if you run into a problem with your flight plan, you're getting an error, you're getting a rejection, and you just can't get past it. Well, little known fact is ForeFlight has a whole team of people that watch your filings, and if you run into trouble, we are already working on a solution for you. But if you put in a bad email address, or you put in a phone number that's like your home number,
yeah, your secretary, we're going to be calling your secretary, and I've done this, where you call the secretary and you go, hey, I need to talk with so-and-so, and she goes, he's not here right now, may I take a message? And we're trying to help you.
Yeah. So make sure you put in like your cell phone number, one that's going to ring where you're at, not the cell phone that's in your desk drawer.
Right.
More than once, I've had the solution, and I know the guy's trying to get off the ground in 15 minutes, and I just can't get hold of him.
Yeah, no, and it's a little frustrating on our end, because we really want to help you.
We do.
One more thing. If you happen to see an unusual number as you're having difficulty filing, it is probably one of the outstanding team members on the flight operations team trying to reach out and help you.
Yeah, so if you see something from an 832 area code, 281,
or
713, it's probably one of us trying to give you a call and help you out, because really there's not a lot we haven't seen. So if you're running into a problem with a flight plan, we probably know how to fix it, and we want to help you, because this is what we get to do. It's all we know how to do.
That's why we're here.
Yeah,
but we're good at it, which is also why we're here.
There you go. All right, so I think we beat that horse to death. All right, so if we're satisfied, we have everything in here correctly, this is when we would actually hit the file button. When you hit the file button, Tim, it's going to ask you how much fuel did you put on board this airplane.
Did we forget to put fuel on board?
I think you did.
We forgot to fuel the airplane.
Yeah, put some fuel on board.
Man, okay, let's put 3 hours of fuel on board the aircraft.
And it's going to ask you, are you ready to file this VFR flight plan for November 1, 2, 3, 4, departing in 2 hours and 49 minutes? Most people just hit the file button, but make sure you read that and make sure it makes sense for when you're actually filing. I've seen more than once where they just get the times mixed up, and they file for like a day from now when they're really trying to leave in an hour, or they file for 5 minutes from now and they're not planning to leave for another 6 hours. Just make sure it jives with what you've got. You were going to say something?
No, you got it.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
So if that,
make sure you read it.
If that makes sense, make sure you read that. If that makes sense, go ahead and hit the file button, and it will spin, and hopefully you'll get a big happy green.
There we go.
There you go,
I
happy
like
green check mark. All right, so we've just filed a VFR flight plan. Tim, what happens now?
Well, in this case, with VFR flight plans, our servers send it over to Leidos, and Leidos then
stores it.
For VFR flight plans, you are not in the air traffic control tower. You call for clearance. They're not going to see that. There's no visibility on a VFR flight plan, because VFR flight plans are only for search and rescue purposes. So what happens is this VFR flight plan gets set into a pile. And then when you go out and you activate it, either by selecting this button here or by calling up flight service and saying, hey, I'm airborne, they will activate it, and they will move the flight plan into another box, call it the active box. Now, if you land and you forget to cancel your flight plan, either through us or by calling flight service.
You mean close the flight plan?
Yeah, close the flight plan. I apologize. Thank you. Close the flight plan. Then they are going to start search and rescue activity after a little bit of time.
Mhm.
And they're going to want to have a chat with you. They're going to call us. They're going to ask us about your information and how they can get a hold of you. And people will start looking.
Yeah. So just remember, a VFR flight plan, when you file it, nothing really happens until you activate it. And then once you activate it, just think that the clock is ticking. So if you said it was going to be an hour and 14 minutes to get over to Austin, get there in an hour and 14 minutes. You've got a little bit of fluff time, but don't activate it and then delay by an hour. That's not going to be good.
That's not good.
But that's what VFR flight plans are for. Their main purpose is for search and rescue.
That's correct.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about, let's amend this flight plan.
Yeah.
All right. So let's just say for some reason, we want to change the altitude on this this flight.
You mean we decided that the 1 knot of speed wasn't worth the fuel burn?
I don't want to climb up that high. I'm scared of heights. So let's take it down to 6,500 feet. So if we're going to make a change, all you do is just go up and select the field that you want to change, field or fields. So we're going to change it from 8,500 to 6,500, and then we just go down and we hit File Changes. And it will ask you, are you ready to amend?
Read it.
Yep, yeah. Read it and hit Amend. And then it's amending your flight plan.
Where's that green check mark?
Yep.
There it is, green check mark.
Same thing with IFR flight plans. So that it can't really be much simpler, but
we should talk about the filer lockout window.
I will do that right now.
Oh, you're going to do
that? Yeah,
that?
I'm going to do that right now. Thanks. So if we were filing IFR, there is a certain rule. There's a rule that the FAA has that if you file a flight plan electronically, they have what's called the lockout period. And within that lockout period, you cannot amend or cancel a flight plan electronically. You have to do what's called a manual coordination, where you actually have to either call flight data on the phone or get on the radio and call ATC on the radio and make your changes or cancellations with them. And it's generally about 45 to 47 minutes, depending on which center.
In some airspace, it's 60, but it's the unusual one.
Right. So just keep that in mind. And so my advice, from having done this for a while and having been a pilot for a while, if you're making a very minor change to the flight plan, like let's just say the passengers call up and say they're going to be 15 minutes late, don't try to refile the flight plan. Your flight plan is still good in the ATC system for up to 120 minutes after filing at most centers. I think there's 1 or 2 that are not 120 minutes. Likewise, if you file the flight plan through ForeFlight, we're going to send that flight plan directly to ATC if your departure time is within 22 hours of the filing. Right. Anything outside of 22 hours, it goes in a holding pen, but anything inside of 22 hours, it's going to be available to ATC. So if you're an hour early, just get on the frequency, call them up and say, hey, we're ready to go. And he may, the controller may say, hey, you're early. And say, yes, I am. Can we still go?
You'll need to tell them you're early, because the strip probably has not printed yet. And this is all IFR. Yeah. We're talking about IFR flights here. You're calling for clearance. You're there an hour early. They haven't printed the strip. This is IFR. Yeah. Not VFR.
Right. IFR, not VFR. And they'll do it for you. I've done it a bunch of times. It's not a big deal. But, minor changes to your flight plan, just, if it's just a time change by a couple of minutes here or there, I wouldn't bother making a change to the flight plan. It's just not going to matter unless you're coming out of someplace like LaGuardia or O'Hare or someplace where you need slots, where you got to hold on to those slots. Yeah, I mean, that's a different story. But I'd say for most of our users, it's not an issue. So 15 minutes late, don't amend the flight plan.
An hour late, you don't need to amend the flight plan. You're still there.
You're still there. And really, if you're inside the lockout period and it's really not going to affect the routing of the flight, let's just say you added 2 additional people to the flight, right? You can get on the frequency, and when you call for clearance, you can ask them, say, hey, I've got 2 additional souls on board. And can you update my flight plan with it? You can do that. That's what I would recommend, as opposed to trying to do it inside the lockout period and then getting a manual coordination. And
right. It's much easier just when you're calling for clearance to say, hey, we have 2 extra souls on board.
They're nice guys. They'll help you out. So, all right. Anything else? Can you think of anything I missed on that, Tim? I'm looking at my at my high-tech notes here.
Your notes, the sheets, the
Yeah,
paperwork.
the sheets.
You
here.
haven't gotten into a glass cockpit yet, have you? Is that Phenom? Is that Phenom
Phenom's
glass?
pretty glassy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they don't let me play handball in there. So.
Okay.
It's good
We
enough.
should probably cancel this, huh?
Yeah. Let's talk about canceling a flight plan. So canceling a flight plan is just about it's as easy as falling off a bike, Tim. Why don't you go ahead and cancel this?
Cancel?
Yes.
Yes. Green check mark.
Well, you couldn't get much easier than that.
Yeah, we're done.
That was good stuff.
Yeah.
So, all right. That's really what I needed to talk about. Tim, you got any other tips or
I'm going to totally
sources of
give
wisdom?
another shameless plug for team@ForeFlight.com.
Great. Yeah. If you guys run into any issues, questions, feel free to reach out to us. That's what we're here for. We've got a dedicated team. We're here 24/7, 365. And we'll talk airplane all day to you and help you out because we really want to make your user experience as easy as possible. We want your flying to be as safe and as fun as possible. So we do this webinar once a month. So there will be another one in September. So if you want to attend again, that's great. That's fine. If you know somebody else that you think would benefit from this, please encourage them to sign up for this one, share the link with them. We're also going to start having other webinars on
Thursdays.
Yeah, I think on Thursdays, starting in early September with very specific subjects. So we're going to go through some things like cross-country flight planning. Phil's going to do that one.
Phil did a good one.
Phil did a
and also deeper dives on very specific subjects that may or may not be of interest to you, but we will be doing deeper dives.
Right, and I think one of the ones we're going to do is PDC, which is going to be a really interesting one. That's a pre-departure clearance. If you're not familiar with it, might be something fun for you to listen in on because it might just be something that might be of interest to you signing up for. Let's see.
Now all the questions are over.
Yeah, not all. Hey, we still got plenty of time.
Okay, let's take some questions.
All right, let me.
What do we have?
All right, let me look at one here. Yeah, so this person is asking on the VFR route selection about visual points. Well, so VFR, VFR's unless you're doing your long cross country where you got to have that point every 25 miles, I just do directs. But Tim, let me on your screen.
Yeah.
Why don't you show them? Take an imaginary flight from point A to point B and just show them how you can tap on the screen and just create your own waypoints using prominent landmarks.
So for example, that lake.
Yeah.
Okay. Tapping on it, and we have a lat long.
And then when you tapped on it, you saw where you could add that to your route.
Yeah. Bring it back over. Actually, here, I'll remove it and I'll add it back. Select, and then just select whichever one, in this particular case, the lat long, and it automatically adds it into the route.
Yep. So I'd say that's the easiest way to do. What I would normally do when I was doing some ground school instructing was you draw the plumb line, from point A to point B, and then you zoom in and you find your railroad crossing or your town or your water tower or lake or whatever, and then you just tap on that point and just make it your waypoint. And it's really pretty simple.
Okay.
Okay, hey, here's an interesting question. How do you drag a route with an iPad with no mouse? But you just put your finger on the screen.
Yeah, you just tap the scroll. Well, you're going to see this.
Yeah, you just see that little circle because Tim's using a trackpad. But if you're going to draw a line.
So let's draw a line between here and over here. Oh, we're back to that same lake. Come on. And then put your finger over the line, and you can move it anywhere you'd like.
Yep.
Over Flatonia.
There you go.
Okay.
All right. So it's as simple as that. And you know what? Another question came in. I know it's one thing I totally forgot. Take me over to the flights page, Tim. I want to talk about the briefings. So they were asking about the how do you get your weather brief? Well, you just go to the top of your flights page
and tap briefing.
Hit briefing. It's going to generate and I'm putting up air quotes because there really isn't a lot of specifics of what an approved FAA weather briefing is.
Yeah.
But this is going to give you, and this is the really old format.
It will, because they put it on the most basic.
Right, you put it on the most basic, but by going in here and generating a brief, it's going to give you everything you need to know about the flight. It's going to give you all of your weather. It's going to give you your airmets, your sigmets, your NOTAMs, your forecasts, all that stuff. Everything you need as far as a weather brief is going to be included by hitting that briefing. Now, if you look at the briefing the night before, which is what I normally do, if I got a flight the next day, I'm going to look at the briefing right before I go to bed. And then when I get up in the morning, I'm having my first cup of coffee and my bowl of Cheerios. I'm going to look at the briefing again. But one thing I think that a lot of people neglect to do is hit that little refresh button down in the lower left.
That little button?
Yep,
right
hit
there?
that little button, and it will retrieve the new briefing. So obviously,
nice.
the information is going to be.
So when you're walking out to the airplane, you tap that.
I do. That way I've got the most, I can read the most recent briefing right as I'm walking out there. So that's how you get your weather brief. All right, somebody's asking a question about Europe. So yeah, I didn't make my disclaimer at the beginning of this. We're going to focus this. So this webinar is going to be mostly focused. It's going to be all about filing domestically. Filing VFR and IFR in Europe is a completely different animal, as I'm sure this person who wrote in knows. It's much, much more complex. We actually have other webinars about filing IFR in Europe. Let me get my.
I don't remember. Maybe we should do another one on Thursday.
We could. We've also got the ForeFlight for Europe on the ForeFlight on frequency webpage.
There you go.
I think did Henrik have something to do with that? They did a nice job on that. But go there, take a look at that, search around for the European webinars. We've got some very specific stuff for our European friends over there. That's going to probably answer a lot of the questions. And if they don't, I'm not trying to say I don't want to go into it, but I really don't want to go into it because we just don't have time to go into European flight plan filing. Send us an email at team@foreflight.com if you don't find your answer on the ForeFlight on frequency webpage, and we will get back to you. So yeah, that's all I got on that. Let me just see if I got any other questions. Oh, they're asking about glider flights. I don't know if we have profiles for gliders.
That's a good question.
That is a good question.
Cessna 172 becomes a glider as soon as you forget to put the fuel in.
Well, it's not just 172s that do that. They all do that.
They all do that.
They all do that.
It's a heavy glider.
Yeah, some of them are better than others.
That's true.
So, yeah, well, we'll have to. So, like I said, we're not going to look. We don't know everything, and ForeFlight is vast and wide in its capabilities, and we don't want to talk about things we don't necessarily know a lot about. So we will look stuff up and get back to you. But we are about 3 minutes away from having to shut this thing down. I think I have, somebody made a joke about a pot of coffee here, Tim. I think they're trying to get you there.
Hey, I like coffee.
They wanted us to answer a little more quickly. So, all right. Well, I'm just going to thank you once again for joining us this afternoon. Thanks to my colleague, Tim. Thank you to Chase and Josh in the background. Thank you to Jay, Sam, and Kit. And thanks to each and every one of you for being a ForeFlight user. It's because of you that we get to do this great fun job for this great fun company. And again, if you need anything, if you have any questions about filing related topics.
Hey, glider.
We do have glider?
Yeah, quite a bit actually.
Oh, fantastic. There you go. Tim's already answered it. Good job, Tim. Thank you.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah, good stuff. Reach out to us, team@foreflight.com, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks, everybody, and have a great week. And
thanks, everybody.
Be safe out there. Yeah.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.